Hello guys, and welcome back to Joe's Ventures. And today we're doing part 46 of our Jurassic World Evolution 2 mod spotlights. We take a look at some of the wonderful mods people will be making and compare them to their real life fossil counterparts. And today, I wasn't going to make a part 46 until after the Feathered Dinosaur DLC came out, but there was the absolute most perfect pack has come out this time. So before I go into all the different species, this is the Feathers cosmetic pack, along with a couple other mods that we'll get to near the end, the Feathered Cosmetics. So this mod was made by HawkOwl1215, who's made like Ostroraptor and Utahraptor before, but he's decided to gone through, or they have decided to gone through and give about 8 or so, or 7 or so, of the dinosaurs from Jurassic Park, or Jurassic World Evolution 2, all new feathered skins with models, and made them like new paleo accurate ones. And I have to say, they are something to behold. So we're going to have a look through those. So we're going to be starting off today with Compsognathus. So look at this little cute guy. Let's see if we can get him a slightly better pose. And there's a couple little bugs, but that's okay. Let's have a look at this little bounding guy. So this is Compsognathus, and you can see it's all feathered up, and it looks absolutely beautiful. So we can have a look. Let's see if we can get much closer. There we are. So we can see a lot of the changes here really made it thinned up a bit. Got that really, really long tail. Obviously much bit more rounded because of the feathers. Much bigger eyes. There has been talk about some Compsognathus being like actually juvenile theropods of other groups, but we're not going to get into that today. But we can have a look at this really awesome little mod here. I'm such a big fan of this. And this is, because it's a close relative of an animal coming in the feathered dinosaur pack, Sinosauropteryx. This is the more accurate color you'd get. Very orange. This is what we get from preserved melanosomes in the fossil of Sinosauropteryx. And being a close relative of Compsognathus, it's easy to put a nice pattern on like that. And it's got that ring tail and orange to it and everything. You'll see some changes to the proportions. Obviously longer neck, much larger eyes, long tail. And I gotta say, I love this so much. It's not done with the traditional feathers that you see on like the Therizinosaurus or any of the dinosaurs coming in the feathered dinosaur pack or the feathered species pack. This is kind of done the old way through actually like modeling it, but I still think it looks awesome. I think if you just added that to give it a little bit of fluff, it looks so beautiful. But yeah, really awesome coloring. Accurate to Sinosauropteryx, which is a relative of Compsognathus. So yeah, it comes out really, really excellently, and I love the big eyes there. HawkOwl just really given us a really wonderful mod, and you can see all the details out there, the anatomy change, longer neck, bigger pubic boot, bigger arms, everything. So yeah, really does fit what we more realistic version of Compsognathus. So we'll let him run off and do his thing. Next up, we're going on to some slightly bigger animals. We have got Akea Ornithomimus. So look at these wonderful guys. Here, we'll have a look at you, since I really like the colors on here. But we can see some of the wonderful changes here. Definitely been some pretty huge changes, as you can see. We'll move on to the head. You can see it fits a lot better, because Archaeornithomimus is kind of an early relative, or in the same family, Gallimimus, as things like Gallimimus. So you can see the early inklings of that there. Some really nice changes to the beak, and you can see that really wonderful eye, and then you can see the texture of that feather coating going down here, and you can see the quite round going round down there. Very much like an ostrich, because ostriches often have like parts of their underside exposed because of thermoregulation, I believe. So that's kind of the same as well. You can see this big shaggy coat and all of that going down the tail. Really big fan. You can see those wonderful changes to anatomy as well. You can see that it's not nowhere near as long and spindly, or doesn't have the pronated hands. It's got the proper wing filaments and everything, so you can see it connects to the middle finger there. Looks pretty spot on. Really, really awesome. And got the feathers going down. It potentially had a tail fan, but usually Pecna style is a good idea of that, and some changes to the feet. Looks really, really awesome. I'm just so enthralled by this mod. Hawk et al. Did a really wonderful, Hawk Owl, not Hawk et al. Just Hawk Owl. Really did a wonderful job with this. Definitely awesome. And you can see some of the wonderful patterns and colors you can kind of see there. I'm kind of partial to this one. One criticism I would like to give, though, is that some of the colors are pretty weird. Like, this is like green on it. I think the patterns are a bit weird as well. I think that's just because they're basically just ripped off from the original game ones, and they kind of look odd on a bird when they're more reptile type patterns, but still really, really awesome. I'm just glad this mod exists. It's such a great mod and really gives us a great look at these guys here. So another really awesome mod. So I'll let them run off and do their thing. So that was Archaea Ornithomimus. Next up, we have got Struthiomimus. So obviously not too dissimilar. I like the variation that you can get in there because the Archaeornithomimus doesn't have a tail fan and has a full head of hair. I like the difference here with the Struthiomimus. Well, it makes sense because Struthiomimus means ostrich mimic because these guys, the genus for ostrich is Struthio. So I really like adding that to it and giving it quite a distinct difference to it. But we can see that wonderful head there, those big eyes, and that shape of that head there, very much like what we know of Struthiomimus. And we got that long neck, and it's been reconstructed here as being bare, very similar to modern ostriches, and I think gives it another thing to make it more unique, especially with that round kind of crown, or what's the shoulder. I don't even know the technical term for it, but it's really awesome. And then you can see the wonderful wings there. Could probably be a little bit more detailed, or adding the wings from the Pyroraptor when the actual feathers come in would be pretty cool for this guy, I think. But you can see those wonderful wing feathers going on there. Really gives an interesting shape. And then you can see that long body, because these guys, as I mentioned, these guys have very bird-like bodies, so they probably didn't quite have the same kind of pelvis as a bird, but very nice and rounded there. And these guys had a little bit of a shorter tail, but you can see tail fans have been added on this guy as well. You can probably see that's like an evolutionary grade. Like this one reminds me a little bit more of like a Dinosaur in terms of its evolution, though that's more closely related to Gallimimus. But you can see some different variations. So even though these guys are both ornithomimids, they're very different in how they look. And then as we see Gallimimus, that's different again. So I think that's really, really cool. I'm really happy with how these have come out. It's definitely really nice. And I love this color. This is the Limpopo river skin. I like that brown on it. It looks really nice. And the black on the head there. Really incredible mod. Let's let them walk off and do their thing now. So next up, we've got the next one of the Mimid. We have got Gallimimus. So you can see the difference again, because Gallimimus is quite a bit bigger, because these guys are quite huge. Gallimimus, I believe, is one of the larger ornithomimids, about 6 or so meters long. I think Jurassic Park kind of gives it a bit of a rap for being small, but it's actually gigantic. But we can see some of the wonderful changes here. The big head that it's got going on looks really, really interesting. And you can see again, it's got that fur going down the head. Reminds me a little bit more like an emu. See, it's kind of the in-between. You can see it's got the feathered head and the tail of the Archaeornithomimus, and then the Struthiomimus has got the tail fan, but these guys don't, which is also really, really cool. But you can see the changes of that large size it has. It's just so nice. Changes to the skull, that long neck, that really long body, big oval body that they had, and these really big arms. They did have quite big arms that are not pronated. You can see they're obviously clapping properly. Probably could extend the feathers a little bit more, but we can see there's some of the changes there. Looks really nice. I like this pattern as well. Reminds me a lot of baby emus and things like that. Looks a really nice pattern, things like that. Really, really cool. And then you can see that long tail, and you can see along with the feet of the Struthiomimus, much more thinner feet. These guys have much more bird-like feet, which pretty much all the hair is muscle, and then that's all just tendon and some fat pads at the bottom there. Really, really fits. I'm just in love with these guys. It's really such an awesome mod, and came at the perfect time with the feathered species. So really, really cool. So those are all of the Ornithomimus from this pack done. Uh, After this one, we'll have a quick explanation of how to go through it. So we're going to have a look now at Truodon. So you can see this is another one, Truodontid. Who doesn't love a Truodontid? We'll get into the how to use the cosmetics after this guy, because this guy's actually got a different name as a cosmetic, and I'll explain why. But yeah, we can see some of the wonderful changes of these guys. I'm just in love. Just look how beautiful these guys are. So you can see some of the change of the head there. Truodontids are very interesting because they have almost like a bigger, bulkier head, and they also have teeth that are very similar to things like pachycephalosaurs, and that kind of implies that they were probably even like omnivorous potentially. So that's another really cool fact about these guys. And also, what I really like is they also have asymmetric ears, and that has led people to kind of reconstructing a very much owl-like ring. Like you see them on owls, but also the kakapo, which they gets their name the owl parrot sometimes because they've got those facial discs like an owl. But a lot of that is very speculative, and some people argue against it. But I still like these more speculative, like plumes or shape to its head going on there. I really do love it. Reminds me of like some nightjars and things. I really hope with now that we have feathers in Jurassic World Evolution 2, people could try and be a little bit more speculative and adding different things with different dinosaurs. I think that'd be really nice and help to make them each a little bit more distinct. But yeah, I still love this. You can see really nice amount of feathering. I'd probably put a little bit more on, but that's just me. If nice to stick to shape. But you can see the wonderful arms as well, actually folded in this time, proper like birds, and you can see it's got the long coverts and primary feathers as well. It's folded in. It's not like they're not like Jurassic Park raptors going like a bunny. They're on the side clapping like the rest of them, so that's really, really cool. And you can see those really thin feet, so definitely a bit of an update there. And you can see those wonderful tail feathers, which have actually been reconstructed rather beautifully. Definitely a big fan of that. A little bit of issue rendering with how we're doing with that, but still really, really awesome. I'm definitely a big fan. These guys have come out wonderfully. So awesome. So we're going to let them run off. Ooh, duck off a little bit, but we're going to let them run off and do their own thing. So I'll show you how to get into this. So what you do is we'll go into Troodon, as we'll get into Troodon. So if you want to change the pattern, it's another cosmetic. So you have your normal variant. This is your normal in-game Troodon, and for example, and then you have the cosmetic done by Hawkowl1215, and sometimes they've got different names. They're usually the full genus and species name, but this one has been changed a little bit because Troodon itself is considered undiagnostic because it's really only described from teeth, and teeth aren't, and especially in reptiles and dinosaurs, a lot of them are very samey, so it's hard to tell. But another genus, this is Stenothocasaurus, or Stenothocasaurus, I believe you say that, but this is basically the same thing. It's just a more diagnostic name for Troodon. But yeah, really, really cool. I really do like this one. So we'll just save and exit. So those you can do that with other species as well if you want to go to, let's say, Gallimimus. So you have your Gallimimus bolitetus, which is the genus and species name for Gallimimus, and you have your default. So good example. So another good example. So we're going to let them run off and do their thing. Really, really cool. So next up, we're having a look at the rest of the pack. We've got our two big Dromaeosaurs. So we're going to be having a look at first. We're going to have a look at Dino Nycus. So there's a wonderful Dino Nycus. A really, really cool animal, if I do say so myself. And really nice edit as well. So you can see some of the changes. It obviously has its full feather coating and it doesn't have its weird crest, but we can see some of the changes there. Dino Nycus is a very much boxier face. I've heard people compare it to more like a wolf in terms of its ecology, compared to potentially like the jackal or something like ecology or coyote type ecology of Velociraptor. These guys were quite a bit bigger, about the same size of a wolf as well. These in game they're still a little bit too big, but still looks really nice. Bit bulkier head, potentially hunting many small dinosaurs and other animals like that. You can see that those changes there. And you can see the big bulky neck. You can see it's. I think this has got about the right amount of feathering on this guy. It looks really nice, and you can see those proper hands as well. That should be going down from the middle finger, and then you have your wings as well. A lot more rounded body as well. These guys had much more bird-like hips as well, and you can see going down to the back here, which almost leads to like a really weird taper there. We can see those big thighs and those really large claws that have been extended. Oftentimes, I think people often under-reconstruct the feather, the claws and stuff because of keratin. Usually, from what we know from other dinosaurs and modern animals, usually you want to add another half of the bone core to the original keratin sheath. So probably if you have a claw that's a meter long, you will, if in life it would probably be 150 centimeters long, for example, and there's core. So that's a good example of that. But yeah, really, really nice. Do love this Dino Nycus, really, really cool. And then we can see that wonderful big tail fan going on. So this one very much reminds me of the Saurian, like osprey coloration, but I still think it looks awesome regardless. It's definitely just such a nice reconstruction. How can you not fall in love with this guy? And you know I do love my feathered dinosaurs. Looks so nice. Really, really nice. So yeah, we're going to have a look at the last animal. Certainly last, but most definitely not least. We've got everyone's favorite Jurassic Park killer. We have got Velociraptor. So now look at this guy. Now, is this guy not so interesting? This guy's probably got the most. This is probably the closest we've ever got to an accurate Velociraptor in Jurassic Park or Jurassic World Evolution. So you can see those wonderful head here. You can see some changes from the Jurassic Park one. Definitely a lot smaller. The Velociraptor itself was about 2 meters long, while the movie one's like 4 or 5. Much smaller and weighed about 15 kilograms, about the same size as a North American turkey. Let's see if we can get a little bit of a better pose for that guy, just because he's too close to his friends. We want it there. We'll clear that up. So I just want to get the perfect look at him. That's not what we want. There we are. So you can get the perfect look at him. So you can see that really small, spindly head. They got a really long face, so that would potentially be really good at catching prey and things like that. Much long neck as well. You can see this guy actually kind of well accentuated in that. I really, really do love that. Also, you got your wonderful wing feathers going down like that. Much more round oval body, very lean and mean, built for speed, you could say. You can see it's also starting to become a lot more of a bird-like hip, as you can see the pubic boot kind of pushing back there. See that quite long body as well, and then you can see the gastrella that go down there. Quite long, spindly legs, as you can see, and then another big dew claw, which it gets its name from, with some nice changes to the feet as well. And you can also see the wing. The wing is not properly attached at the moment because it needs to have that going from the middle finger. It's missing its primaries and all that, but other than that, it's pretty much spot on. And then you can see that really long tail that would have been reinforced with ossified tendons, similar to a lot of other dromaeosaurs. So it would have been a lot stiffer and better able to help when running to keep it stable. And you can see this wonderful big tails fan going on, which I do love. I think it looks wonderful. And you can see all the different colorations and things like that to it. So, kind of a little bit of an elephant in the room. This is very much based on the bearded vulture, which is a common. You could consider it a paleo meme. It's kind of like reconstructing Gigantopithecus as a giant orangutan all the time. It's kind of considered a bit of a paleo meme, but I do think it really does fit well on this animal, and it's still excellently made. Nevertheless, it's really, really nice. I'm definitely in love with this guy. It's nice to finally see a proper Velociraptor in Jurassic World Evolution. And thinking about 2 or 3 years, this is probably like the first time we've got a proper one. It's the right size, right shape with feathers and everything. So it's a bit of a monumental moment, I do think. So yeah, really, really cool. So all these animals from that I've released so far, again done by the done by Hawk Owl 1215 for the feathered cosmetic pack. So that's a pack that adds all these different cosmetics into, and I've already showed you how to pick it out in your game yourselves. So yeah, really, really awesome. So next up, we're moving on to some other animals. We've got a couple more before we finish up this video. This one's a replacer at the moment, but I imagine it will be a new species eventually. This is Neovanita by Darth Summit 19 in YT. So this is, as I mentioned, Neovanita. Really, really nice reconstruction as well. I really hope Wheat made a really nice Neovanita in Jurassic World Evolution 1. I really hope he manages to port that somehow. But yeah, really, really cool. Anyway, Neovanita, these guys are a genus of Carcharodontosaurian theropod and is known from several skeletons from the early Cretaceous about the Barmanian about 130 to 125 million years ago from the Wessex Formation, which is in the Isle of Wight in the southern England. And it's actually one of the best known early Cretaceous theropods from Europe, which is really cool. It was first discovered, or the first bones were discovered in 1978 when a storm made part of the Grand Chinle collapse and kind of showed Brightstone Bay on the Isle of Wight allowed people to get access to these guys. And those rocks have been dated to the early Cretaceous, about 125 million years ago. And they were first collected by the Henwood family, and then were shortly after by the geology student David Richards. And Richards sent them the remains to the Isle of Wight, or the Museum of the Isle of Wight, and the British Museum of Natural History, where paleontologist Alan Jack Craig, or Craig, we should say that, determined the bones to be of two animals, iguanodon and some theropods. So it's quite interesting. So the iguanodon was later referred to Metallosaurus, but then was changed to Brightstonius as well. But the other theropod became obviously Neovanita, with several other remains being found as well, including some in 1996 and also 99. Named it to Neovanita in 1999. And there've been redescriptions and stuff and so on and so forth. So this was a medium-sized theropod. They were about 7 centimeters, oh not 7 centimeters, 7 meters or about 23 feet long, and had a gracile build that was about a ton. And there is a specimen that indicates an individual that could have potentially got up to 10 meters or 33 feet, but it only consists of a toe bone, and its position within Neovanita is dubious. Could very much be something else, like the White Rock Spinosaurid, for example. They got up to 10 meters long. So there's a lot of different features, like the maxilla, that really gives it a distinct look. And as in terms of its relatives, at the time it was described, it was considered the only known allosauride from Europe, but actually showed to have more in common with the advanced Carcharodontosaurid group of allosaurs, and has been to be closely related to the group Carcharodontosauridae, but it's actually closer to Megaraptorans and forming the family Neovanitidae. And others have supported this, or some Megaraptorans being Tyrannosaurs. It's kind of a Tyrannosaurids, it's one of those things. So usually it's considered a basal member to those Megaraptorans, or most likely most people consider it a Carcharodontosaur and as an early relative of Carcharodontosauridae. It's like early relatives of things like Neovanita, well, not Neovanita, is Neovanita, Concavenator, Carcharodontosaurus, and eventually Mapusaurus and Giganotosaurus and things like that. So in terms of its senses, there's been some research that suggests that Neovanita actually had many integumentary sensory organs on its snout. So if you look at crocodiles today, they have uh, integumentary sensory organs like waterfowl and crocodilians. What they do is basically allows them to feel pressure in water. So that allows them to basically feel in the water and basically almost gives them like a sixth sense, and they could be used in muddy water, things like that. And it's weird because these guys were believed to be completely terrestrial, but it seems that these organs may have served other purpose, like sensing air or temperatures, controlling draw pressure, and even have been suggested that it seems to indicate they avoided biting each other. But they may have actually used this in courtships, like rubbing up each other's face or maybe lightly biting each other's faces as a way to like communicate, as seen in a lot of other theropods, or potentially even using that as kind of a way to just like communicate as well. And these structures have been found in Daspletosaurus, and but it's more complete in Neovanita. However, there's been a more recent study suggesting that these trimetal canals along these sauropsids are much denser network than the neurovascular canals, so of more aquatic taxa such as Spinosaurus and things like that. And taxa that developed a rhynchorhyncha or rhynchorhyncha, which is a beak. These guys may have had average face sensitivity and as most of the theropods, but it's something that we're learning about a lot, and it's something that's changing. So yeah, another really cool fact about these guys. And another thing as well is that the holotype has many pathologies. It seems that the author has given us like mid-caudal vertebrae fusions, so potentially hurt itself in the back, healed fractures of mid-caudal vertebrae, and healed gastralia, and some even make false joints. So it's been the animal itself had a rough and tumble life. And in terms of its paleoecology, fossil remains of Neovanita have been found in the Isle of Wight off of southern England during the 20th century, first discovered. These guys lived in the Wessex Formation with a lot of other famous animals, such as Baryonyx, Polacanthus, Eutyrannus, Iguanodon, Ceratopsuchops, and Ripovenata as well. And the holotypes are mixed of those I mentioned with Bragstonius, which is an iguanodontian, but also the dig site it was found in has lots of fishes, amphibians, lizards, pterosaurs, and gophophonans, which were a type of prehistoric crocodile. And these guys were most likely the apex predator in the ecosystem, hunting adult or young iguanodontiids and things like that. They were kind of a more apex predator. But yeah, really, really cool. Nice to see a Neovanita. Dart Summit, of course, did a wonderful job. So we're going to let them run off and do their thing. So next up, we've got by Master Doot and a Master Doot. We've got two cosmetics, which I know you guys will know and love. So we have got for TRex. This is a skin. As I go into I'll explain before we go into that look at stand, but this is an interesting one. So we have got the juvenile Tyrannosaurus Rex done by Master Dude. Oh, that didn't help. Well, that didn't really help, but anyway, here is our juvenile T-Rex. Sorry for the technical difficulties. It's dinosaurs being dinosaurs. Obviously, never work with animals or children, they say in the show business. But anyway, this is a juvenile T-Rex based off Herbivosaurus, as you can see the rig. But we're going to talk about a little bit about juvenile T-Rex because the growth of T-Rex was always very interesting. So T-Rex seemed to be pretty interesting. They had a lot of changes throughout their lives. The smallest specimen we know is known as the Jordan theropod, or LAMC28471, was estimated to be about 30 kgs or 66 pounds, with Sue being the largest, or FMNH-PR2081. She got up to about 6 tons or so, which is quite interesting. And historic analyses showed that the Jordan was about 2 years old when he died, and Sue was 28 when she died. So this is most likely the kind of average age for the species. So potentially maybe 30, 40 is maybe pushing it. Histology has also been done on a lot of other specimens, and it seemed that T-Rex had a really interesting growth curve. So these guys Well, this guy would probably be about 10 or 11 years in age, so a little bit younger than Jane, which is quite a famous adolescent T-Rex specimen. So it seems that they would have grown on a curve, so they would have grown quite slowly until they reached about 13, 14, 15, and then they had a huge growth spurt, putting on about 600 kilograms as soon as possible, and then about 14 years of age, a year, so about 16 kilograms a year, until they reached their adult stage, where they got to about Sue size, so about early 20s. So that's quite interesting. And there's been a lot of research into that. Also, there's been a study that showed that they may have the growth rates may have been significantly higher, even like 2 tons a year, but they've noted that it's significantly lower than the annual growth rate, things like that. And over the half of the known T-Rex specimens known may have died within 6 years of reaching sexual maturity, which is a pattern that is seen sometimes in other tyrannosaurids, or also in large long-lived bird and mammal species today. So these guys are characterized by high infant mortality rates, followed by relatively low mortality rates against juveniles or among juveniles. So mortality then increased again, sexual maturity, because of these stresses of reproduction. And one study suggests that the rarity of T-Rex fossils is due to part of the low juvenile mortality rates, as these animals were not dying in large numbers at these ages and thus not often fossilized, which is quite interesting. And this ratio could also just be the completeness of the fossil record. And it seems like very much like crocodiles, they laid potentially a few eggs, or maybe even a lot of eggs. And we really don't know that much. It's kind of the only aspect that we don't really know too much about T-Rex is how it reproduced in these early stages of life. So it's very likely that these guys may have lived fast and died young. So they grew as fast as they could and got as big as they could as soon as possible. And that allowed them to be big adults and survive. And a lot of babies would have died in their first kind of year or so of life. But once they got past that stage, it'd be less likely to die. And then they grow up to be juveniles and adults. And they would even actually start breeding, potentially at Jane's age. It's potential that they reached sexual maturity or able to reproduce before they became skeletally mature. So it's very likely that Jane-aged tyrannosaurs may be starting to have babies. But again, it depends. It's very much they may have reproduced. That there is evidence suggesting that they may have gotten quite a bit older. There's other Carnotathus that lived into like their 50s, so I don't think it's unreasonable that a Tyrannosaurus Rex could have lived in their 50s. It just depends. Histology, things like that. It's always science. Science, you're always learning something new. But yeah, a really cute little. Oh, that's not what we wanted. Really cute little guy here, and we can see it's got a feather covering going along here, and those 2 fingers. We can see it's also got quite a bit of a longer skull. Also, it seems that the younger tyrannosaurs may have been occupying a niche quite similar to Allioramids, so things like Allioramimus and Quinchosaurus, which is already in the game. So fleet-footed predator, running fast to catch prey, while the adults were larger and went to catch larger things such as ceratopsians and ankylosaurs, which is quite interesting. I think that's cool. You can see that thinner skull and bigger arms as well, comparative to the body, and a nice long body and tail, things like that. Really, really nice cosmetics. So what you do to get this guy, it's a little bit confusing. It took me a little bit to figure out, but what you do is you go to Genome Library, and then you go to your T-Rex, and you go basically default. So this is your normal T-Rex, and this skin here. So this is your juvenile skin. But our next animal is Stan. So let's save and exit. So our next animal is Stan, who is a very famous T-Rex, as we'll have a look at. We'll let him go and do his thing. Let those 2 little cuties. So we're going to have a look at this reconstruction, also done by Master Dude. This is based off Stan, who is probably one of the most famous T-Rexes ever found. So we're going to have a look at him. So we're going to have a look at your skull, because that's like the most famous thing about you. So this is Stan, the T-Rex, and beautiful colors on this guy. So Stan the T-Rex, also known by his inventory name BHI3033, is a T-Rex that came from the Hell Creek Formation of southern Dakota, just outside of Buffalo, and was found in 1987 but excavated in 1992. It is the fifth most completed T-Rex to date, and more than 70% bulk of its found. In October 2020, it was sold for $13.8 million, which was made it the most expensive dinosaur specimen ever sold. And people were really worried that Stan, being one of the most complete T-Rexes, was going to be lost in a private collection somewhere, some rich dude's house. But luckily it was bought by the Abu Dhabi Department of Culture and Tourism, and it seems to be going to be put in a museum in Abu Dhabi, which allows people to go and see it and people to study it. So that's a really, really good thing. So the really notable about Stan is that he's got a really nearly complete and perfectly preserved skull, and is widely regarded as the best T-Rex skull ever found. So if you see T-Rex skulls in most reconstructions, it's going to be Stan, because Stan is just the best. And although the bones were separated from each other, they were in pristine condition. And according to Pete Larson, Stan had enabled scientists to learn a lot more about T-Rex's movements of cranial kinesis in the head, which it seemed to not have that much of because it's just big and bulky. And because of his narrow pelvis, they was able to confirm that is confident that it's male, but it's not really that accurate to tell if it's male or female just because of narrow. It's kind of neither here nor there. But Stan was estimated as an living animal. He was about 11.7 meters long, or about 38 feet long, or about 12 feet or 3.6 meters at the hip, and existed at the end of the Cretaceous about 66 million years ago. And body mass estimates have been ranged from about 5 to 10 tons, but most put him at about kind of 7 tons or so. So really interesting. And in terms of his discovery, it was discovered in fragments by Stan Skarsen, who was looking out. It was obviously named from. And at the time, he was doing freelance work at the Black Hills Institute, and it was even originally thought that it was a Triceratops. And the excavation itself was required the skills and resources of the institute, so it officially began in the 11th of July 1992, which was led by Pete Larson, who's a lead paleontologist and has excavated many other tyrannosaurs such as TRex and Sue. And the initial team removed the rock around Stan's skeleton with a bobcat, and then finer removal was done of the rocks and things like that with picks and brushes until the fossil could be plotted and diagrammed to help as well, and then was wrapped in burlap and plaster and then sent off to the Black Hills Institute. So he was quite a bit to prepare. It was clean and prepared at the Black Hills Institute, where they were able to study him, and really cool. And in terms of his life and death, we know a little bit about his life. It seems that he had notable wear and tear on his body that suggests that he had multiple attacks and illnesses throughout his life, with puncture wounds at the back of his skull that believed to be from another T-Rex biting him, with other bite marks and other on his neck, and also fusion of 2 vertebrae, which is in his neck that mean that he had less mobility, for example. And according to Black Hills, he may have actually lived in a family unit, which may have helped with his injuries, so that's very speculative. And Stan likely ate hadrosaurs, like Edmontosaurus and things like that. And it's unknown what caused Stan's death, but it could very likely be old age, starvations because of his injuries, or even parasitic infections as well. We really can't tell that much. But yeah, he's going to be, if you guys want to see him, he's going to be in Abu Dhabi, and when that's completed in 2025, when it was sold. And one thing as well, people were really worried that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson actually bought Stan after the thing, because he has a T-Rex skull in his living room. Everyone was like, oh no, you bought Stan. But it turns out that he just got a cast. There's lots of casts of Stan as well. But luckily, he's went to a museum, and he's been around other museums as well. He's been to the Houston Museum, the Children's Museum of Indianapolis, also Manchester. There's casts of him everywhere. Like in nearly any display is going to have a Stan cast. It's very, very cool, and it's really awesome. So yeah, nice to see a nice reconstruction, and we get to see a particular individual reconstructed, as we can see that wonderful head there. He looks so beautiful. How can you not love Stan? He's a beautiful T-Rex, and you can see a wonderful body added on there as well. Very much big and round with that long tail and things like that. Really, really awesome. So yeah, this has been a really interesting pack of animals today. Definitely really chuffed about getting the feathered pack right before the feathered species pack. Really awesome. Hawk Owl 1215, you've done a wonderful job. My little constructive criticisms would be try and make the patterns a little bit more bird-like and change the colors a bit, and then maybe actually try to implement the real feather system or the feather shader that's in the game from things like Sterizinosaurus and Uteranus and Dinosaurs that will be coming in the pack, things like that. But other than that, pretty much perfect. I'm a big fan. I love it. But yeah, I think this is going to be a perfect place to end the video. So I really hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. Always remember to hit the little bell icons to get notified on anything. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy this video. Hope you guys like and subscribe, and bye-bye.